Welcome to the Confident Host podcast with me, Kay Gibbs. If you're a holiday let host or co-host looking for more bookings, more efficiencies, and to get ahead, then you are in the right place. Each episode brings you practical tips, real stories, and expert advice. Today's podcast is not my usual vibe. This was an unplanned extra thanks to Airbnb announcing the change to their fee structures. If you're worried, you probably don't need to be, but listen in to make sure you've got all of your ducks in a row. So let's get started. Hello, ladies and gents. We are going to have a little bit of a chat about Airbnb's email today about fees, because there's been much consternation about it. And for most of us, for the vast majority of us, the headline news is it's going to be okay. So grab a cup of tea. I've got a chamomile, and let's just have a bit of a chat about it. So first of all, we're going to talk about the principles, the idea behind it, or at least what my view of that is. There's some of you who haven't heard about this change. We'll mention that. We're going to talk quite a bit about thresholds, VAT, MTD, rent a room. We're going to talk about what you need to do now. And then we're going to answer some common questions that have come up about whether it applies retrospectively. Is it worth using the automated thingy that Airbnb has set up for you to be able to use? What about pricing software? Does it include other fees? And does the guest see it as separate? So what has happened today is lots of us have had an email from Airbnb telling us that we will all now be moved onto the simplified fee structure that has been around for quite a while now, a couple of years, in June. If you did not receive that email, you are definitely not on your own. There were other people who didn't receive the email. I don't know why. Often with these things, Air don't roll it out to everyone at once. Sometimes when there's updates, not everybody gets it at the same time. Not everything's available at the same time. So it might just be as simple as that. To be clear, so that we're all talking about the same thing, the historic fee structure on Airbnb was that you would be paying 3% in fees, but your guest would be paying between 14 and 16% in fees. So the total gap was something like 17% plus VAT. Okay. Now, the simplified structure is 15.5% plus VAT. To be clear, that's plus VAT on that amount. So 20% added to the 15.5%, not 20%. It's not 35.5 in total, 20% of that amount added. So it comes out 18.6. Is that right? I wrote it down. Yeah, 18.6. Now, everyone will be moving on to that structure. That structure has been around for quite a while, as I say, and you've been able to opt into that for quite some time. And if you are using channel management software, or you joined very recently, you will already be on that. So if you're thinking, what? I don't even know what this is. That's because it's already happening. You're already there. So there'll be no change for you. Also, this has been sort of clearly the direction of travel for some time. So I know quite a lot of people have already done it, already sorted their prices out, and it's just no big deal at all. The people who haven't are either didn't know, not sure, or holding back for a reason, which likely is VAT. First of all, I just want to talk about principles. Now, I'm not paid by Air. I'm not an Air affiliate in any way. I'm quite a fan. I like using Air as my OTA. It's the only one that I now use. But I want to be clear, I'm not trying to preach here. This is just my perspective on it, okay? To me, I tend to take Air's advice about what they want me to do on their platform. And that's not because I'm like, oh, they're amazing. It's because they have billions, trillions probably, of data points from which to draw, and they use that data to make policy decisions. Their policy decisions are going to be there to make them more money, and by accident, vicariously, that also gets me to make more money. So if they are saying to me they recommend this fee structure, that says that their research, their data shows that this gets better, more, higher, whatever bookings. So I think for me, that's the positive, is that they've made a change, and they've made that change. This is very fiscally driven, isn't it? This isn't like, oh, they've decided to add king bed. This is really sort of based on literally the money that you're going to gain from it. So to me, anything that they say optimizes my listing and my practice, I'm going to definitely give due consideration to. So they've been signposting for some time that this is the way to go. They've put their little recommended thing next to it. So it was it was inevitable this was going to happen. That suggests to me that their data shows that guests prefer it, that guests prefer to get to checkout and not see any separate fees. And I know some of you have raised concerns about that guests aren't going to realise the hefty fees we're paying. The kind of guest, to my mind, that didn't realise before that we're paying the whole other bit and only thought we were paying the 3%, which I think is actually worse, because they think, oh, they're only paying that, when actually we were paying more, effectively, the gap was much bigger, those guests are not going to be savvy enough to realise. I think some people just think it's kind of a free service, don't they? Just don't click. So to my mind, there's no damage that's going to be caused there. It's a positive.
Hello, it's just me coming on to interrupt me to tell you about Facebook Fix. Facebook Fix is the coaching group for you if you are looking to work on your Facebook presence, to make Facebook work for you and to get bookings for this year. If you're currently not using Facebook, or if you're using it and feeling unsure and never quite sure what to post and how to word things and what to do and where to use your energy, this is for you. You can find out more or sign up to be on the early birds list, or maybe even sign up, depending on when you're listening to this, at www.kgibbs.com/Facebook Fix. And as ever, come and find me on Facebook and ask me anything at all there. I'll see you in there. There's also been some consternation about guests seeing the whole amount when you're scrolling around the map. That's been the case for some time. Again, I couldn't pinpoint exactly when. At least a year, when you've been scrolling around the map as a guest, you've seen the whole price presented. And then when you go to buy, you see what the host is charging and then you see the fee on top. But it's been initially shown to you as a whole rate. This is key to get your head around. People are worrying they're going to look expensive. You are not going to look any different. The price is going to look almost exactly the same as it did before, because the gap between what the guest is paying and what you are receiving is almost identical, perhaps even a tiny bit less. You know, if the guest is paying just over 100 quid and you've been getting just under 100 quid, sure, it might be that you've only been paying this 3 quid here, but they've been paying this whole bit. So comparing it to, you know, what you're advertising on Facebook or what you're advertising on your own website or, you know, whatever, the gap, which is the important bit, is the same. The guest doesn't really care how much of that gap is in name yours and how much is in name theirs. So you're not going to look any more expensive. And I see this as a real positive because everyone's now going to be in the same boat. It's going to be really simple. Guests aren't going to go, well, hang on, how come I've got to pay fees on this one and not on this one? Because they'll all just look the same. So I think that's a positive thing. There are quite a lot of, frankly, unscrupulous people who do jobs a bit similar to mine, I guess, sort of scaremongering a bit and trying to make this seem like, oh, you've got to do this and it's going to... And honestly, this just isn't that, unless there's a VAT thing. And even then, there's some ways we can make that work. This just isn't that big of a deal. It's a case of doing a pricing review, which I would say you need to be doing at least annually. And this is a good time of year to do it anyway. And by the sounds of it, colleagues have found that the suggested pricing review that Air's giving is actually really effective. So it might just be literally the case of a click of a button, 10 seconds, sorted. So my aim in that first intro bit is to go, it's going to be all right. It's not as big as some people are suggesting it might be. My feeling is I probably got an email today because one of the listings that I historically have been working on for various reasons hasn't switched over because it's not currently open. And I think I got the email because of that, because my other two already switched. So my thinking is if you're already on simplified pricing structure, probably that's that. And you didn't get the email. So don't worry if you didn't. Either you didn't need to or you will get it, I'm sure. Okay, then this is the big one, thresholds. Right, so there needs to be a little bit of understanding here, particularly about VAT. We're going to talk about VAT, MTD and rent a room, but we're going to do VAT first because that's the big one. So there's something really critical to understand behind this. If you haven't before, go and find my podcast episode where I recorded with Helen from Maple Tree Tax and Accounting, who is my accountant, who was my client originally, is a holiday let owner and is just brilliant. And in that podcast episode, we talked specifically about this. When I asked her, what is the one thing that people get caught out on with tax? This is what she named. In your business, your income includes any fees that you are paying when it comes to tax. The amount that lands in your account isn't your entire gross income. Your entire gross income includes any fees you're paying on any platforms. And that's true whether you're an Etsy seller or for me on my Squarespace website or for us as Airbnb hosts. If you're hosting on Airbnb at the moment, that 3% is part of your gross income. You need to be declaring that and then declaring that fee as a cost. And exactly the same is true of this 15.5% plus VAT. So you declare the whole amount. And that's where people are concerned, and understandably, because by declaring that whole amount, if I do it like this, you can see, we have been declaring the amount we get paid plus the 3%. We're now going to need to be declaring the amount we get paid plus the 15.5 plus VAT. And that, if you're already riding at kind of 78, 82,000, that may well tip you into the VAT. Now, the thing with VAT that differs is that, and that makes this relevant really, is that when you tip into VAT, it's not just the amount above that £90,000 threshold that then is chargeable, it's the whole amount. So that's why you'll see people being very concerned about it if you're not someone to whom this applies. Now, there's a couple of things on this. First of all, you're right, that is really annoying. That is annoying. But if you're already riding around 78, 80 grand, you have been, well aware that this is something that might come up and you've probably got a plan for it. We also had the Chancellor in the autumn talking, well, she didn't openly talk, but very very much in the media, it was leaked that there was the chance that it was going to be brought right down, even to 30,000. So you'll certainly have had a bit of foresight that this might be something that was going to happen. And the other key thing to say here is if you've got a business of that size, it's very likely that you're not dependent on Airbnb specifically. You're going to have a broad base where you market your property. And so the thing to do, to my mind, is reduce the reliance on Airbnb and increase direct bookings, because there's no fees on those. So you can effectively, any booking that you take, you're reducing your VAT, your amount that's accountable for VAT by having a direct booking, because there's no fees on that. So you're even taking off the 3% that you have been paying. So if you can balance, get some more direct bookings that take those 3% off that account for the additional that's going to be paid, that will go some way towards not hitting the VAT threshold. Or of course, you can simply, close for a month in January, or, reduce your rates for a little bit or something like that. I feel for those people in Wales who are now going to have to do this limbo. Some people between, look, I need the nights, I need the 182, but I also can't hit 90. So you're going to have low rated nights, which is a pain. Like, I can see that's really, really difficult. But I would urge you to look at direct booking as an option. I've seen some comments today in some forums saying, I feel really shafted by Airbnb. Let's not have all our eggs in that basket. I love Airbnb. I like it as one of my booking revenues. I don't want to be dependent on it, so I would urge you not to be. And so this is a perfect place to plug Facebook Fix, which is my upcoming coaching group where we talk about Facebook and how it should be driving your bookings and can be driving a big, big chunk of your bookings too. And there'll be no commission. You put a bit of extra work in, but you don't pay any commission at all. Another one that's come up is MTD, that's Making Tax Digital, which is coming in for some people this April, for some people the April after. My feeling with this is it's not massively relevant because the threshold is going to get so low. The plan is that in my view, is that it will apply to everyone eventually anyway. So it just might bring you into it a year sooner. I also, and I have an excellent accountant in Helen, so maybe that skews my view. I don't really see MTD as a bad thing. I think that reporting quarterly in a much more low-key kind of way is probably a good idea. So yeah, if it's bringing you into that, that's just not the end of the world. It's just bringing it forward a little bit. I guess there will be a little bit more accounting cost, but not necessarily. If you're using Xero, that does the job. Helen and I are going to record a podcast, oh my goodness, next week actually. And we're going to talk more about Making Tax Digital because she's trialed lots of different things and has lots of positive things to say about it. I get such positive feedback from people who work with Helen. And by the way, I haven't mentioned I'm so bad at selling stuff. I am affiliated to Helen and proudly so. She is my accountant. As I say, she was my client. And if you quote K5 when you get in touch with her, you will get 5% off your first year of ongoing tax work with her. She's fantastic. I cannot speak highly enough of her. In terms of rent-a-room, what the rent-a-room scheme is, for some of you won't even know what I mean because it's just not relevant for you, so I'll keep this brief. The rent-a-room scheme is something whereby you can let out part of your house. While you are in it, you must be in attendance and it must be a part of your home. It cannot be like a separate thing in the garden. There's various reasons that make it a part of your home, and it's always worth, if you're in any doubt, giving your council a call and kind of just checking. But if you can qualify under rent-a-room scheme, that is a really big boon. And there's some people saying, oh, well, the fees, similarly to VAT, the fees is going to take me up over that threshold. It's £7,500 that you can earn tax free, but you cannot claim expenses. So you can't do both. You get this £7,500 free. It was originally designed to support people with lodgers so that we weren't trying to get tax off people who have lodgers because that's just not practicable. But it is perfectly applicable if you are letting out as a holiday let, but while you are staying there, that's key. But with this one, the difference is with VAT, once you tip over £90,000, once you tip over that threshold, the VAT is applicable to the whole amount, down to £0. Whereas with rent-a-room scheme, if you tip over and you, rather than 7,500, you do 8,500, any tax, and it's taxed at whatever rate you are at, so 20% or 40% or the higher rate, 45, is it? If only I had the wealth to know what that is. I think it's 45. It's taxed at whatever your normal income tax rate is, and it's only the bit that goes above. So it's very much incremental, probably not that big of a deal, and your £7,500 tax-free boon is still there as a win. So yes, it will apply to you, but it isn't that big of a deal. It's not going to have a huge financial impact, and I would say the same to you. Exactly the same applies to everyone in all of these thresholds. Get more direct bookings, and then this is just a non-issue. Take a few more direct bookings, and that'll absorb the difference. Thresholds we've done, what you need to do, okay? What you need to do. If the VAT threshold is the issue for you, and that's your concern, you need to get more bookings direct. If you've got to decide, right, are we going to take the leap here? Because the thing with VAT is, once you've gone over, you're committing to paying that VAT on the whole amount. I will say though, because 20% is banded about as the VAT rate, and it is, You may not be aware that the flat rate VAT for holiday let, so it comes under, I've written this down, for hotel or accommodation businesses is 10.5%. And that is a different setup where you can choose to be on the flat rate. That means you cannot then claim VAT back on the goods that you buy. So it depends. If your business is goods heavy, say you, I don't know, buy loads of new linen all the time and your person who services your hot tubs, they're VAT registered, that sort of thing, then it's worth going on just the standard 20% because you can reclaim all of that VAT. So it may not be actually that impactful. If you are a low goods setup, then that 10.5% is likely to be favourable. So look at that. Look up flat rate VAT. That's it. Look that up because that's certainly an option. So you've got to make a decision. Is this going to be the thing? We were close anyway. We knew we were going in this direction. Is this going to be the thing that's going to send us over? And if it is, you want to accelerate through that threshold because obviously with that 10.5 or 20% taken off, your profits will initially, if you're only at 91 or 92,000, be lower. So you want to kind of push through that as quickly as you can. So that's the first thing, is to decide that and then optimize everything you're doing to make that work for you. Put your prices up a bit to accommodate it and make sure that you are optimizing everything you're doing, marketing yourself the very best you can on all platforms. If you decide you don't want to go through the threshold, then your options are to stop operating for a little bit over the winter, probably to reduce your income, or to get more direct bookings, because by doing that you remove the fee completely. So you're then reducing your gross income. Let's say it's a booking worth £1,000, you're going to be reducing it by 18.6% of that, so £186. So every booking that you take not on Airbnb becomes more valuable to you because it keeps you under that threshold. So again, Facebook is a brilliant place to do that. Get yourself on Google Maps, get yourself there, get yourself sorted with returning guests, all of those things. If you feel like, I don't know what I'm doing with this, I've got a guide called Branching Out and Direct Bookings on my website, and I strongly recommend it. If this is going to give you the push to take direct bookings, and if you're hovering around £80,000, you ought to be taking direct bookings. All those eggs should not be in that one basket. So those are the actions you need to take in terms of VAT. Make the decision and then take actions to make those work for you. The other thing that we all need to do, if we haven't done already, is change your rates by June. It's by June this year. Lots of you will have done it already, so it's no concern at all. As I said, lots of you, if you're on a channel manager, are already on that fee structure anyway. I would recommend switching it on ASAP, seeing what happens. I've heard lots of reports today, particularly from Confident Host Circle members, my membership, that people have gone in for it, they've pressed a few buttons, and there's an automated thingy on Airbnb that resets them for you. I've seen reports that this is inaccurate. I haven't seen anything credible to say it's inaccurate. The colleagues that I work with in Confident Host Circle really know their stuff. They're saying, yep, I'm happy with that. And it took them 10 seconds to change them. So am I a little bit annoyed that I spent half a day upping my price? It's about 3 months ago. Sure. But I could have just clicked a button. No, I'm not, because I think a price review is a really positive thing anyway. So you need to up your price to accommodate this. So you need to up it by 18.6%. as opposed to 3% that you were doing before. If you are not the owner of the listing, so if you're a co-host or if it's your partner that owns it or whatever, they need to do it. The owner of the listing needs to do the switching. It's in account settings rather than in the listing settings. So you do need to get the owner of the listing to make that change. I've had to do that with the one that I run for someone else. And I think that's it for what you need to do. Always, when you make any change, don't just trust blindly an app, a piece of tech that is going to try and do it with robots. Do obviously go in as a guest and check you're happy with those prices. Do also, if you've got smart pricing turned on, turn it off and on again. Someone earlier today reported it's not working, then she turned it off and on again and it was working again, it picked it up fine. Do remember that the fees are included. Right, some questions that came out then. First question that came up a lot today is, does it apply retrospectively? So no. Any booking that has been made before now and before June, if you don't make the change now, any booking made before you make that switch will have the old terms applied to it. You're not going to change the contract that you've got with the guest. When guests book, they are entering into a contract with Airbnb. Those terms are not changing. They will be the same at whatever point they make that booking. So if you switch it on in a minute, then any bookings from tomorrow will apply. But you may well, and it's going to be a bit annoying for your record keeping for this next few months, isn't it? If you've got a booking in September on the old system, you're going to have to remember the fee structure for that. It's worth really being thorough about keeping records for that. But no, it does not apply retrospectively. Any bookings you already have will be the same rate that they've been booked at. Does Airbnb auto thingy work? It's what I've written. So I haven't seen this because my listings, I haven't had the option because I did this quite a while ago. But as I understand it, Tim kindly shared in our main group in UK Airbnb and Holiday Let Host earlier that there is a little thing when you go into the app that says, do you want to automatically change these? He did it, no problem. As I say, I've seen people report it's not working, but I haven't seen anything credible to say it's not working. I've seen what I think is probably just scaremongering. From what I've seen, all the ladies who've done it in Confident Host Circle have been successful, been very happy. They've just done it and it's changed it. How brilliant's that? Next thing, does it include cleaning and other fees? Yes. So that's worth bearing in mind. If you're doing it manually, then you want to up your nightly rates and your smart pricing rates and, all that stuff. But you also need to up your fees by the same amount as well, if that's how you want to structure it. So yeah, the Airbnb fee is applicable to all of your fees. I always find it very annoying that Airbnb fees, meaning the fees we as hosts pay to them for advertising us, is they're given the same word as things like cleaning fee and extra person fee and extra guest fee and dog fee and stuff, when they're kind of different. But so the fees do apply to the fees. Next one, pricing software. Someone's asked, what about Price Labs? Is it going to know what it's doing? I don't know the answer to that, so I'd love anyone who does to comment on this video and let me know. I don't use pricing software, so I'm not sure how it will kind of recognize it. I'll be really interested to hear how you get on with that. I personally would be inclined to just wait a bit, see what happens, because there'll be reports coming out. I'm sure that Price Labs and Beyond will publish something following today's email, so I'd just hold fire and see what they say. Yeah, last question that I've got here. Do guests see it as a separate cost? So when guests go to check out, are they now going to see Airbnb fee as the service fee, it's called, isn't it, as a separate fee? And I believe the answer is no. I mean, these things are always changeable with Air. They do an update and, a few little quirks change, but presently it doesn't appear so. No. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, in terms of it's annoying that people in the general public don't realise we pay a big chunk of our fees to them. Yeah, that's annoying, isn't it? It kind of feels like, ugh, about it. But my belief is Airbnb does not do things that damage its own business. It would not be making this change if the data didn't show that guests prefer when it says there's no fees at the end. Otherwise, why would they make the change? Sure, you might feel irritated with them, but you have to admit they're in it to make their own profit, and their profit is our profit. So my feeling is probably the data shows that guests prefer there not being additional fees. Okay, that is all I've got. I hope this has alleviated some fears, but I do appreciate if you're close to the VAT threshold, it's a pain in the bum because you're going to need to make some decisions, some big decisions, and take some actions to deal with that. But for the vast majority of people, I'm not downplaying those people on the VAT thresholds experience here, but what I do want to say is that for the vast majority of us, this isn't very impactful. It's worth just being really clear about that, because if you were to go to social media today, you'd have thought quite the opposite. You can follow my Facebook page and Instagram to make sure you know when there are more opportunities to chat with me live about subjects that come up just like this one. See you next time.